Newsmakers about what matters most to you. Now, your host, Scott Walker.
Right now that time, 8:19, you're tuned to WGNS, and this morning we have guests on the air from MTSU, and we've got Laura Holder, Federal Liaison for the Tennessee Civil War National Heritage Area at Middle Tennessee State University's Center for Historic Preservation, and also Dr. Kate Hughes, candidate and graduate research assistant with the center. How are both of y'all doing this morning?
We appreciate being here.
Morning. Very happy to be here, but not doctor yet.
Not doctor yet.
I really
okay.
have to just clarify that
okay.
one. Thank you.
Soon to be then.
Soon to be.
So the title of Tennessee Civil War National Heritage Area, that's a big mouthful right there.
Absolutely. I think we have the longest organizational title in the state.
Yeah.
But we're one of the federal programs that operates out of the Center for Historic Preservation at Middle Tennessee State University. And we just help communities across Tennessee preserve and promote their Civil War and Reconstruction era stories and places.
Interesting. So what types of things do you do on a daily basis?
So on a daily basis, through the heritage area, a lot of times we're helping communities develop museum exhibits. We're doing research projects to help them determine how they can best preserve their historic sites, how they can share those with the communities, how they can use those as a tool for economic development to bring people into the communities. We have both a grant program that we use to help communities, and we also have what we call professional services, which is where staff members and graduate students like Kate go out and work with communities directly to provide services at no cost to them.
And MTSU's Center for Historic Preservation, they recently won the Award of Excellence for Heritage Center Exhibit. What was that?
So we were really excited, and we were so appreciative that TAM had given that award to us. So we also coordinate a visitor center that's right off the downtown square. It's free and open to the public, and we developed an exhibit really in preparation for the 250th anniversary of our country in 2026. And it tells the stories of two families that had very different but also very similar experiences as they developed their communities in Tennessee. And so we were just really excited to have that award. We're hoping that'll excite people to come into the Heritage Center and see this exhibit for themselves.
And of course, there is so much history in this area regarding the Civil War itself. And what do you do as far as going about to find that history or to put together ideas?
Oh, that's a great question. We're really community driven. So most of our projects come from our communities and our partners and sometimes private citizens directly. So we don't really go out into the communities and necessarily tell people what they should do with their resources. We really wait for them to come to us. And then we just spend a lot of time talking with the stakeholders to find out what their stories are, what they value, how they want to help tell their stories, and what they can, what kind of help they can use from us. And then we really kind of let them drive the story, but we provide support to make sure it's well researched, everything is fact-based, it's peer-reviewed, so that they have a really good, authentic story to share when they're ready to do that.
In this recent award, one of the things it was based on was creativity. So how do you go about being creative with history?
You know what, I'm going to turn that over to Kate a little bit too, because one of the great things through the center and through our visitor center downtown is our projects are student driven. And so it gives students a lot of creativity and room to develop their own ideas. So if you don't mind, Kate, I'm going to turn that over to you a little bit.
Absolutely, Laura. Thank you so much. I think you gave a really great explanation of what the Heritage Center does and the Tennessee Civil War National Heritage Area. Excuse me. Let me make sure I'm getting my language correctly here. Always. I've been here, going on 6 years, and I still want to make sure I get it right. But I think the thing is, in terms of creativity, we want to really point out that our history is fact-based history, so we're researching evidence-based, documents and artifacts. Everything is factually based, but where the creativity is really coming in is in terms of kind of how we're then sharing this material with the public. So I think really that's the thing about the exhibition itself. And I'd say for all of the students who have been involved with this exhibition project and really all the various different aspects of it, from research and then archival processing, even almost 6 years ago now, and then also writing the exhibit text and kind of putting things together and caring for these objects as they came in to the Heritage Center. There's been a lot of kind of student-driven channels of research, and so, for instance, figuring out even myself where to start with the research project with material that was just so extensive. My dissertation is actually focused on one of the families that we are looking at in the exhibition, the Armstrong family, who have a property called Stony Point up in East Tennessee, in Hawkins County. And so really they just have this incredible property and an incredible amount of material that was extant and kind of left over in their family for 250 years. And so figuring out where and what we wanted to focus on in terms of the research, which objects and which pieces of material to then draw those stories out. So that's where the creativity, I think, really comes in.
Yeah, and I think, like Kate said, it's the stories. These are two families, one white family from Upper East Tennessee, one black family from Giles County, that, again, had very different revolutionary experiences, but there were a lot of similarities just with the community building and the influence that they had. And I think, we try to tell a fact-based story, and those are so important, but it's the stories of the people that draw people in, and that's what visitors want to hear, and that's what they relate to. So while we're making sure that we do tell a well-researched story, we're always trying to tell it from the family's point of view or the person's point of view, so that we get a feel for what life was like and what they experienced, and that's what people can really connect to and relate to.
Well, I think most people understand the word research. There's a lot more that goes into that word, such as fact-checking and making sure that the information you're getting is actually correct. So how do you go about fact-checking stuff that dates back to the 1700s?
Well, I'll jump in here, Laura. Thank you so much. And just go ahead and say, I think that really what this comes down to is if we're working with original documents and original material, as a trained historian, I know how to look at a document and to some extent, to the most extent, be able to know what time period it's from based on the handwriting, the paper, what the writing utensil is, the language being used, all of those things. But then going beyond that is not just having the original document, but looking at the context in other areas. So what else is related to this information? So for instance, if I have a diary from the 1860s and it's talking about something that happened in town that day, I can also go back and then look for newspapers from that day in the 1860s and see, is this matching what this person was writing about? And then look at other documents, for instance, at the Tennessee State Library and Archives, something like that, and kind of try and kind of cross-reference in that way so that we're not just getting information from one point, but that things truly are coming from a multitude of perspectives.
So you actually can go back and look at diaries that I guess were donated to, were they donated to MTSU? Were they donated to the state? Where were they?
Currently, actually, the material for the Armstrongs still belongs to the Armstrong family, to different members of the Armstrong family. We'll see where all of the material ends up at some point. But we're so grateful that they've been so generous in sharing this material with us and with myself and the other students who work for the Center for Historic Preservation and who have had the chance to work in such a hands-on way with really historic material dating back all the way actually to the 1780s. Some really incredible things. We've got documents that are agreements for indentured servitude dating back to the 18th century, land deeds from the 18th century, and then this series of diaries. I mean, we do so much work with the Civil War for all of the reasons that Laura explained earlier in terms of the Civil War National Heritage Area. And so the Civil War story of both the Gardners and the Armstrongs is really a huge part of it. And for the Armstrongs, they just have this incredible collection of kind of journals and diaries from one of their patriarchs of the family that just offer an incredible amount of information of what it was like to live in that time.
It's got to be really fascinating to look back and read somebody's diary from way back then. Of course, people, they wrote different, they spoke different. I would guess they were probably a lot better at describing things or situations than maybe we are today, because it seems like today we're on this one-track mind of these 5-second sound bites to get stuff done as quick as possible, but it wasn't really the case back then.
Well, and I think the same with the collection that we got from the Gardner family. And some of the things that we've looked at are not the things you necessarily think are great sources of research, but we have things like store ledgers and church ledgers and photographs and games and items that the family held on to that were important to them, radios, and even from things like that, that the families have so generously shared and put on loan to us so that we could share them with the public. You can learn so much about what the family valued and what they did and how they helped their community. So I think Kate made a great point that these families shared what was important to them, and from that we can learn so much about the family and the community and what was important at the time.
And I think one of the most amazing things about doing this kind of research and having the ability to read this material from 100 years or more ago is that you actually do start to realize that humans are humans and people have their challenges throughout the centuries, throughout the years, and really they're not that different than us. We're really kind of all the same, different kinds of challenges at different times, but really they're thinking about a lot of the same things that we're thinking about today. They're concerned with family, friends, community, sick children, who's getting married and where the wedding is happening and who's throwing the dinner party, but also bigger questions about, their place in society and how they're looking at their country and what's happening in politics. And they're very kind of just engaged with that and really kind of wondering, what is it that makes us Americans and how do we fit into this place in Tennessee that we live in, whether it's in the 1860s or the 1790s or later in the 20th century as well.
Is it hard not to get sidetracked when doing this research? Because I would imagine you probably find a lot of other interesting things that could develop into stories to tell at maybe a museum one day while you're doing research on one subject.
Absolutely. And we call them our rabbit holes. We love to go down our rabbit holes because there are so many fascinating stories and tidbits and side stories that come up as you're doing this research. And that's one of the hardest things is we want to tell a big story and we want to share all the information with everyone. And we really have to concentrate on focusing and narrowing that down so that we get kind of the core of the story. What are the most important themes that we want people to walk away with? Not just necessarily the facts and figures and the times and the dates, but what are the concepts and the experiences that we really want people to understand when they come and visit an exhibit like this.
And again, the story that we're talking about right now that you researched, give us some highlights to that.
So we're looking at two families in different revolutionary times. So I'll let Kate talk a little bit more about the Armstrong family. But, one family was the Matt Gardner family out of Giles County. And it's really following his story post-Civil War, post-emancipation. So as a free man, he is developing a community for the very first time. He finally has the freedom to help his family and his friends and his community create their own institutions. So they developed a school and a church and a store, and the family served in the military. They served their country at a time when sometimes the freedoms that they were fighting for weren't always available to them. So again, a really powerful story of this family, but kind of telling it side by side with the Armstrong family. I'll let Kate talk a little bit about them, but they were also experiencing revolutionary times right after the American Revolution when our country was being created and transformed as well. So it's looking at these families, again, sometimes very different experiences, but a lot of similarities in just what families go through and how they just serve their community, their family, and their nation.
And I'll add in, Laura, just in thinking about Reverend Matt Gardner's family, that his family still owns the property and kind of the house that he built. They still own it today, which is really just an incredible through line in that family's story. And Matt's wife, Rita, actually was this incredible textile artist and quilt maker. And so that's some of the things that we have on exhibit right now at the Heritage Center that if you come by, you can see, which are these just really beautiful, colorful, really beautifully patterned, traditional, and then not always, some more creative quilt making and quilts that she put together. And then when we think about the Armstrong family at Stony Point, so totally different part of the state, up in Upper East Tennessee, they're really coming from before the state of Tennessee is even the state of Tennessee. So they show up kind of sometime before the Revolution, possibly in the 1780s, that kind of time period. And they're really making a life for themselves up in what's known as Carter's Valley. It's not yet Tennessee. It's not yet Hawkins County. And they're very instrumental really with the beginnings of the state and then kind of the area. And their family has this whole westward expansion that they're just kind of, I get very excited and start to say they're part of the whole history of America. But I really do think that that's true. And one of the amazing kind of connections with the Gardner family is that the Armstrongs also still own that kind of main house of Stony Point. It's still in the family today. A really incredible property. You can check out the National Register of Historic Places listing online, although it's from many decades ago. But they also have this incredible story of kind of textile making in the house and on the site, and that we have this really incredible wool and cotton coverlet from likely the late 1840s or 1850s that was made in the house and with materials from their farm and by the women of the house, both black and white, and there were both black and are both black and white Armstrong family members as well. And so I think just thinking about kind of this textile story that happens with both the Gardners and the Armstrongs is one of those really kind of cool object-based but also people-centered stories that we can kind of talk about. There's also a really amazing, I just got to throw this out, there's this awesome daguerreotype, which is like an early photographic image of a young man. He was a Confederate soldier and he died during the Civil War, and he is the brother-in-law of the patriarch of Stony Point, of the Armstrong family, who wrote all of these diaries after the Civil War. And there's just a really incredible, like very special love story that happens with him, and kind of it's very Cold Mountain-esque, and it's those kinds of little rabbit holes that I think are the things that I've got a whole long list of other areas of research I still really want to go down.
And I know we're almost out of time, but where can people go to see the exhibit here?
So they can come to the Heritage Center of Murfreesboro in Rutherford County. We're located at 225 West College Street. We're right off the downtown square, and we're open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And if I could just really quick, I just want to thank some people that were so instrumental in making this exhibit happen. Of course, the Gardner and Armstrong families first and foremost, but also our director, Dr. Van West, who had the relationships with these families, and so they were able to entrust these wonderful artifacts to develop this exhibit. And just our exhibit team, along with Kate, we also had graduate students, Abby Coombs, Taylor Means, Abby Jo Mullis, and Amy Neesmith, who have now since graduated and gone on to do other wonderful things, but we could not have developed this exhibit without them. And we're just so appreciative for all the people that contributed to it.
And again, with us this morning, Laura Holder, and also Kate Hughes with MTSU, and we've been talking about history and the Tennessee Civil War National Heritage Area at MTSU's Center for Historic Preservation. And thank you both for joining us.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Right now, that time, 8:37. Stay with us. We do have more news and information coming your way next.
For 75 years, Murfreesboro Medical Clinic has been a cornerstone of health and compassion in our community. From our humble beginnings to the advanced, comprehensive care we offer today, our commitment to you has never wavered. With 8 locations across Murfreesboro and Middle Tennessee and over 100 physicians, we continue to provide the highest standard of care. Then, now, and always, your health is our mission.
This is Chip Walters, and I'm honored to be your 2024 MTAR Realtor of the Year. I'm with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates, and like many of you, I've seen the real estate market shift and change. People often ask, Chip, what's really going on? Well, that's a great question, and I believe in answering with solid, factual data. So let's cut through some of the noise. I invite you to reach out. Let's have a conversation about your real estate goals and the current market trends in your neighborhood. You can find all my contact information at choosechip.net.
Good morning. Still a little bit of volume. 24 east past Whites Creek Pike coming through the Jolton area. It remains busy, but movement 24 through Antioch past Bell Road, Hickory Hollow Parkway. Still some volume coming in from Murfreesboro. Now into Davidson County here on 24. Again, coming up through Antioch as it gets busier on 65 there in Spring Hill, passing 840. Hey, Princess Hot Chicken, new items on the menu. Check them out online when you order at princesshotchicken.com. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
And now joining us in studio, we have Dr. Amy Sayward, history professor and coordinator of MTSU's American Democracy Project chapter. So I guess start now, what is that?
So the American Democracy Project is an effort by the American Association of State Colleges and Universities. It's about 20 years old, that said, gee, we're doing a great job of educating our state's students, but we also need to make sure that we're educating the next generation of citizens. Are we, in our educational efforts, making sure that we're providing the civic education that our students, our leaders of the future, need so that they can lead in the future?
And coming up, I believe just in a couple of days, MTSU's Constitution Day observance featuring keynote speaker David Brooks of the New York Times and traditional Constitution readings across the campus. So tell us more about that.
Yes, so we will start a little later this morning with the first reading of the Constitution. So students volunteer and they read. We've divided into 110 sections. It takes us about an hour and 15 minutes to read through the entire Constitution. From the preamble, we the people, all the way through all of the amendments. We find that a lot of times students, in reflecting on it, say, gee, never actually read or even listened to the whole thing. And especially when folks are like, oh, that's unconstitutional. Well, do you know what the Constitution says specifically about that?
You know, I was going to ask, when you are working with students who are in college, are you ever surprised at maybe how little they know about the Constitution once they come into the classroom?
So I like to say that they all leave knowing more than they knew at the front end when they're in my classroom, especially. I teach freshmen a lot at MTSU, and I sometimes use something called a reacting to the past game, that my students all take on roles of people who are actually at the Constitutional Convention and have to debate some of the key issues that went into the Constitution about whether we'll have equal or proportional representation, you know, whether slavery, you know, how slavery might fit into the Constitution, a big part of the debate, how long presidents should be serving, whether they can be reelected. So all of those key issues that went into our Constitution. So they certainly come out knowing a lot more at the end than they did at the beginning.
And as these students start your class versus at the end of the semester, what are the things that surprise them the most that they learn about?
So they tend to, and I think most of us do this, they know the end of the story already, right? So in hindsight, they're like, well, of course we have, you know, a president who serves 4 years and, you know, of course we have divided the power of the legislature between a Senate and a House. And then they dig into, gee, that was not at all the expected outcome at the beginning. That it took, you know, in the case of the legislature, James Madison, to come up with what historians call the Great Compromise, because it really was a breakthrough that most of the folks at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia thought either we should have equal representation, that each state should have the same number of representatives, what we have in the Senate today, or that it should be proportional, that all American sort of votes or representatives should be considered equally, so that states with larger populations, Virginia was the largest state at that time, should have more representatives. And so to actually figure out how to bring both of those views together to ensure that states and people had equitable representation took a lot of compromise, a lot of discussion.
Now, David Brooks, the guest keynote speaker who is going to be on the MTSU campus, he's been, well, he writes a column in the New York Times. He's been a guest many times, I believe, on PBS and a lot of other shows, too. Mm-hmm. But what is it about him that you think students will find perhaps fascinating?
So one of the things that I appreciate about David Brooks is, and probably as a historian, so his undergraduate degree's in history, and he often cites or talks about the philosophers, the other thinkers that have influenced him. So he encourages people who agree or disagree with him to go back to and engage with those historical perspectives. He often references Hobbes, for example, a classic political philosopher. And so I think that's helpful for students. It's not just, this is my opinion. This is the opinion that I have developed based on reading this, engaging with this, which is the type of thinking, critical thinking, engaged thinking that we want all of our students at MTSU to do.
Again, with us right now in studio, Dr. Amy Sayward, history professor and coordinator of MTSU's American Democracy Project. And in that Department of History, that's got to be an interesting place to be because there is so much fascinating history regarding America.
There is. So I'm a specialist in post-1945 U.S. foreign policy, which I say my field's always growing because we add a new year, a new president, a new secretary of state on a continuing basis. One of the things, however, that I remind my colleagues in U.S. history, they're like, oh, we have to cover all of American history in 2 semesters, and it's so hard. I said, now remember, we have colleagues in World Civ who cover origins of humankind to 1500 in 1 semester.
Wow.
So they're a little less sympathetic to we have too much history to cram into a semester.
I guess, for students who are coming in as freshmen, how interested are they in history in general?
So it varies, of course. A lot of students think that history is lots of names and dates and memorizing information. I teach our course called Teaching Historical Thinking, preparing especially high school history teachers. And we use a book by a historian called Sam Weinberg, whose most recent book is called Why Study History When It's All on My Phone? Because the idea is if it's just dates and people and memorizing, I can Google who invented the cotton gin and get that answer. Why would I memorize it? And in our field, we really have shifted from that sort of memorization as information becomes much more readily available than when I was in college or high school, to how do we make sure that the sources that we're looking at are reliable, are factual? How do we make sense of conflicting perspectives? How do we tell a story that is true, that is engaging, much like your previous guests were talking about?
There's not a simple timeline for the shaping and introduction of America.
No.
And I don't know if students wish that there was, because I do believe, as I said in that last interview, I think we live in this 5 to 15 second soundbite world, and it's hard to really understand. There's a whole lot more going on than just 15 seconds worth of words.
So much going on. Even when we look at just the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, the records that we have to read through the Federalist Papers that came out afterwards, James Madison's papers, and to try to, for our students, get into a different language pattern. The way that people spoke in the 1770s is much different than the way people speak today. To try to really dive into that mindset, into those documents, into the various people who are influencing it, takes a lot of study, a lot of paying attention.
I bet it does, especially when it comes to legal type documents. That's got to be even harder to understand, because legal documents today are hard to understand.
I have a student right now who is trying to write a unit plan about Andrew Jackson for 8th graders, which is a challenge because the state standards require that you cover 3 different U.S. Supreme Court decisions, and then how to make those legible, understandable to 8th graders is really a task when you're taking a different centuries language and Supreme Court language about precedents and trying to make it accessible to those 8th graders.
So again, this big event coming up, and you said it starts today?
It starts today with the first reading of the Constitution at 11 o'clock this morning. Our College of Media and Entertainment will be right on the quad in front of the library, kicking us off.
And it then wraps up, is it Wednesday that it kind of closes out?
Yes, so Wednesday at 1 o'clock before the David Brooks event, the College of Liberal Arts and the College of Basic and Applied Sciences will be in the Peck Hall courtyard. We do invite all of these events are welcome our community members as well. For the David Brooks event, there will be free parking in the lot right next to the baseball stadium, which is also right across the street from Tucker Theater. So we certainly would invite any interested people to come read the Constitution with us, to come hear David Brooks, and to hear our students engaging with David Brooks.
So they're going to be asking, the students are going to be asking him questions.
Yes, we have a panel of 4 students who are part of the American Democracy Project student organization. Later this afternoon, we're running through those questions and getting them ready so that they won't be nervous on Wednesday.
And then that will be in the Tucker Theater?
It will. We do have a no backpack policy, both for fire and other security issues, but we certainly hope that we'll fill the theater. And if it is full, or if you're not able to make it to campus, it'll also be live streamed on the Tucker Theater YouTube channel.
And people can learn more online. I guess the easiest way, just type in MTSU News, maybe Constitution Day after that.
Yes, and that should get them the link if they want to watch the live stream.
Sounds great. Again, Dr. Amy Sayward, history professor and coordinator of MTSU's American Democracy Project, and the big event that is going on this week now through Wednesday on the MTSU campus. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right now, that time, 8:50. Stay with us. We do have another guest from MTSU coming up in just a minute.
Look for sunny to partly cloudy skies for this afternoon. We'll have highs in the lower 90s. For tonight, partly cloudy, mid-60s, and Tuesday up to 90. I'm meteorologist Michael Carroll from the WGNS Rutherford Weather Center. Right now, it's 66.
From brakes and alignments to new tires and wheels, Tire World, locally owned and operated in Murfreesboro, Smyrna, and Laverne.
Tire World, we keep your family rolling.
Online at tireworld.us.
Listen each weekday morning at 9 o'clock for the Roundtable here on News Radio WGNS. Interesting hosts and guests with the news, views, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
When I don't know what time it is, I look down at my Longines watch. I think Longines offers the best quality for the price, and that's why I recommend you to get a Longines watch from Bell Jewelers. Hi, this is Trevor from Bell Jewelers. Here at Bell Jewelers, our showcase is very full with Longines watches. We just got a huge shipment in. We got the top lines like Conquest, Legend Diver, and Zulu Time, and many of the other ones as well. Come see us at Bell Jewelers, 821 Northwest Broad Street, across from Toots.
The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
And now joining us in studio, we have Bill Stieber, veteran photojournalist and MTSU alum. And I guess starting off, tell us about your photography, first of all.
Well, first thing I want to give a shout out to the MTSU photo department, which helped me find my path when I took a class back in the mid 80s, let's just say, and really discovered the creative outlet of photography, and it led me to a long career at the Tennessean as a photojournalist, where I was basically a walk-on in the late 80s and then worked there till the early 2000s and had incredible opportunities to photograph. You know, I did the Super Bowl when the Titans played, and used to do runway fashion in New York, covered national politics, everything in the world. It was an amazing opportunity.
Photography is so interesting because it captures this fraction of a second in time, and you're able to go back and look at it years and years later. I mean, my favorite magazines were Time and Life magazine.
Life magazine changed the world by basically holding up a mirror to America and showing it to itself. And there's something really emotionally powerful about the still photograph. I mean, video is great, and we think of some historical moments in video, but mostly we think of them in still photographs.
It's like that photograph captures a whole lot more than the video ever could for some reason.
And it's something, too, what I love about the process of making photographs is that it cuts through the conscious mind where you have to react almost emotionally and reflexively, and time slows down and you become at one with the moment to capture moments that you don't even know the significance of while you're doing it. But it's just a great way to feel alive when you're in that moment.
Now, sports photography is one thing, but when it comes to life photography of somebody just living in general, how do you go about blending into the moment so that you don't stand out as a photographer and you end up capturing with the person standing right in front of the camera smiling perfectly?
Well, the thing is that it draws on your the ability you have to connect with people, and that's one of the things that's great about it. Like, for instance, I've been part of what this film is about is my 30-year-plus-year career photographing blues culture in Mississippi, and there's two kind of principles about that. How do you capture something that's real without interfering? And there's two. There's the fly on the wall, kind of aspect. And the thing is, I've never really believed in that as much as the full immersion version, where you absolutely become so much a part of a scene. Like, for instance, if you're photographing a juke joint, and you're not from the community, and you're like, who are you? Who's this guy with a camera? You become friends with everybody. You smile, you laugh, you dance, you buy somebody a drink, and you just become like, oh, they forget about you.
Yeah.
And then people will reveal themselves in honest ways that you can get some really beautiful moments. And that's been my goal for all these different years, like with this film. Yeah.
Some of the best photographs I've ever seen of just people in their setting, in their realm where they're living, are the ones taken with a 35 millimeter up close and personal.
Yep. The key is human connection. I mean, the thing is, you have to have the technical skills to know what you're doing, but the real key is the emotional connection, the making people feel comfortable, no matter who they are. Whether they're in politics or anything, you have to really connect. You find that something within yourself that connects with that person, and everybody has connections.
Now, what's amazing to me is when you're photographing, over the years, when you look back at different pictures, you're photographing somebody who is getting ready for some big moment. They're about to go on stage, whatever it is, but when you look at the photo, it looks like you're in the room with them, maybe a foot away from their face, but yet you're able to capture it.
Yeah, and that is the beautiful thing, and that's one of some of the most enduring photographs are not necessarily the big moment, but
it's like that candid moment.
The one beforehand. It's actually one of the great photographers of all time, Henry Cartier-Bresson, who was the first master of the 35 millimeter starting in the 20s. He captured what he called the decisive moment, and you would think that that's the moment of peak action. It's not. It's the split second before peak action. It's the moment that's filled with anticipation, so you can feel what's about to happen, and it almost makes you catch your breath. It's that in between slice of time.
That fear on that person's face before they walk out on stage.
Right, exactly.
Interesting. So this film that's going to be displayed at MTSU, tell us, how do we go about seeing it, and what's the title of it?
Well, the title of it is called Deep Roots, and that's the same title as the lifelong exhibit. I mean, the 30-something years of work that I did in Mississippi.
Is this all in the Delta area?
Well, yes, roughly so. It's really the whole state of Mississippi and blues culture, and all the cultural institutions that led to the creation of blues, which is statewide, but most of it is in the Delta. So a few years ago, I had a massive exhibit at the Baldwin Gallery at MTSU, and so backing up a little bit, there's a filmmaker named Robert Muggy, and he is a very famous music documentary photographer. He made a film in 1991 called Deep Blues, and it had a massive impact on my life. When I saw it, I would realize that there's this amazing culture going on in Mississippi that I wasn't aware of, and I started making pilgrimages down there. So cut to 30 years later, and I've known him over the years, and he decides to make basically a film about my reaction to his first film, which is the entirety of my work and of the local music that I make with the Jake Lake Stompers, which we've been a band for 21 years playing the old music from the 20s and 30s. So he's put together this documentary film about, it's really me as the core in the center of a larger group of several musicians and this work that I've done in Mississippi. And he's filmed at the Linebaugh Library when we were playing there for the music reading program 2 years ago. And me interviewed at the museum, the Baldwin Gallery, showing all that, also in Mississippi with some local musicians. This film that he's put together is going to be shown Thursday at 6 p.m. at 103, room 103, the Bragg Mass Comm building. And you can park, in the big lot beside it after 5:30. I think they don't give tickets after that. And it's a free showing. The great journalist Ron Wynn is going to be interviewing myself and the filmmaker Bob Muggy after the showing, and it's going to be a really good time. There's going to be a lot of folks there, so if you come in, get there early.
I know we only have 20 seconds left, but again, it is Deep Roots, the art and music of Bill Stieber and Friends. And again, you can learn more just by Googling that and MTSU online. Well, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Right now, that time, we're looking at 9 o'clock, and you're tuned to WGNS Murfreesboro. Local news right now.
Now, an update from the WGNSradio.com News Center.
Tensions continue to rise at the state level, with Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn facing criticism after voting to block an amendment that would have pushed for public release of the Jeffrey Epstein files. The amendment, backed by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, was attached to the National Defense Authorization Act and aimed to direct the Attorney General to release Epstein-related documents. Although Blackburn has long advocated for transparency on the Epstein case, she dismissed this measure as a political stunt that risked military pay. Her office pointed fingers at Democrats for previously obstructing similar efforts, asserting that the focus should be on national security and combating human trafficking. Senator Bill Hagerty, also from Tennessee, joined Blackburn in voting to table the amendment, which passed by a narrow 51-49 margin. Meanwhile, another controversy emerged within a key state agency. The